Sean Spicer.
Obviously, you pray a lot in that job. And I think at tough moments, which there were plenty, that's what keeps you grounded.
The former White House press secretary gets personal in a sit-down interview with me. Texas church shooting. New information in Sunday's attack at a Baptist church. Could the Air Force have prevented the gunman from buying a firearm? Pope John Paul I. A new book reveals details of his death, just 33 days into his papacy. We'll have a report from Rome. And Box of Joy, the Catholic organization ensuring children are not deprived of Christmas blessings. We'll talk to the group's president. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, November 7th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. The former White House press secretary talks extensively with me in a one-on-one about the media and its role in America.
They are not only pro-gun control, they are against life. They put down religious issues. I think when it comes to how they cover people who believe in issues because of faith, they look at that as a negative.
We will have more of that interview with the former White House press secretary, including reaction to his meeting with the Pope, coming up later in the show. Defense Secretary James Mattis says he wants to know more about what led up to the mass shooting at a small Baptist church near San Antonio, Texas. He's ordering the Pentagon's watchdog to investigate why the Air Force did not report the shooter's domestic violence record to the FBI. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reports from the Pentagon. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Secretary Mattis says point blank, we have to find out what's going on. Under Pentagon rules, all crimes committed by military personnel must be shared with the FBI. Air Force officials admit they did not. They acknowledge if they had, it would have prevented the shooter from buying a gun. That gunman, Devin Patrick Kelly, was convicted of assault against his wife and stepson in a court-martial in 2012. Kelly opened fire on Sunday at First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. He killed 26 and injured more than a dozen. Stephen Williford, a neighbor who heard the gunshots, picked up his rifle and ran to the church to confront the suspect.
I was scared for me, and I was scared for every one of them. And I was scared for my own family that just lived less than a block away. I think my God, my Lord, protected me and gave me the skills to do what needed to be done. And I just wish I could have gotten there faster.
Williford, who is a former National Rifle Associate instructor, says he hid behind a truck and exchanged fire with Kelly and thinks he hit him. After that, the gunman got into his vehicle and fled. He would later crash into a ditch where police found Kelly dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities in Texas say at least 5 people injured in the shooting are still being treated in hospitals tonight. Pope Francis sent a telegram to the Archbishop of San Antonio today saying he's praying for all of the victims and their families and the entire community. The Holy Father called Sunday's shooting an act of senseless violence. Lauren?
I know the president is traveling and he weighed in on this shooting while he is in Asia. How is he reacting?
Lauren, the president is not considering any kind of gun control policy moving forward. He praised all of the men that pursued the shooter Sunday, saying that if gun laws were actually tighter or stricter, Williford may not have had his rifle, and as a result, more people may have been injured or even killed. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reporting from the Pentagon. Thank you, Wyatt. President Trump tones down his aggressive rhetoric toward North Korea and suggests a willingness to negotiate. He's urging the regime to, quote, come to the table and make a deal. He made the remarks during his visit to South Korea. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. President Trump says he's seen a lot of progress in dealing with North Korea, but he also stopped short of saying whether he wants direct diplomatic talks. He says if need be, the U.S. will use a powerful arsenal of military force against North Korea, but he's hoping not to.
We hope to God we never have to use. With that being said, I really believe that it makes sense for North Korea to come to the table and to make a deal that's good for the people of North Korea and the people of the world.
President Trump wrapped up his first day visiting with the Prime Minister of South Korea. As the threat of North Korea's nuclear program looms, Trump says the partnership between the U.S. and South Korea has never been stronger. The president will spend half of Wednesday in South Korea. He'll deliver a speech to the country's lawmaking branch, the National Assembly. Then it's off to China as he continues his 12-day Asia trip. And again, a focal point of this trip is increasing pressure on North Korea to end its nuclear program. Lauren?
White House correspondent Mark Irons, thank you. The Catholic University of America in Washington announces free tuition for Puerto Rican students. Comes after Hurricanes Irma and Maria devastated the U.S. territory. The president of the university, John Garvey, says the school is inspired by the example of Pope Francis and wants to make a significant impact during the spring semester. You can read more information about the program plus other Catholic news of the day right now at CatholicNewsAgency.com. Virginia voters cast ballots in a very close and closely watched governor's race, with the Republican promising to sign a 20-week abortion ban. This is seen as a referendum on President Trump's first year in office. The contest could also shape how candidates campaign in the next year's midterm elections. Tonight, we turn to Jason Calvi on the campaign trail in Virginia. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. The rain is streaming down as people trickle in after work here in Northern Virginia. This is a swing state, and the governor's race here has turned into quite a slugfest, with big differences on policies like taxes, guns, and even abortion. And a key player in this election, his name's not on the ballot, but President Trump is backing the Republican. And it's a tightrope walk for the GOP's Ed Gillespie, keeping his distance from the president, but at the same time needing Trump's supporters to win.
I'll be able to work with the president and the vice president and the cabinet to get those things done. That's important for the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So appreciate his support very much, and I know it'll help me be an effective governor for us as I seek to serve the people of the Commonwealth.
Ed Gillespie promises to sign the 20-week abortion ban, stop sanctuary cities, and keep Confederate statues. While Democrat Ralph Northam, an Army veteran, says he wants common sense gun laws. NARAL Pro-Choice America backs him. Northam is looking to ride a wave of anti-Trump sentiment. In this state, Hillary Clinton won by 5 points.
I think they want a leader in Virginia that will stand up, one, to what's going on in Washington right now, the detrimental policies that are coming out of Washington, and also someone that can make sure that we have good jobs in Virginia, that, you know, every job is a good job that people can support themselves and their families with.
Republicans and Democrats are hungry for victory tonight. Each party is eager to send a message to the nation about its strength and momentum moving forward. And of course, Lauren, in 2018, every single House seat will be up for grabs. So they're really looking for the momentum tonight here in Virginia.
I know it's close, and I also know that those exit polls sometimes don't mean a lot. But who went into Election Day with the lead?
The Real Clear Politics average of polls put the Virginia's Democrat, ahead by about 3 points here in Virginia.
All right. Thank you so much, correspondent Jason Calvi, reporting from Virginia. Kim Davis, the Kentucky County Clerk who was jailed for refusing to issue same-sex marriage licenses, is running for re-election next year. Davis stopped issuing marriage licenses after the U.S. Supreme Court effectively legalized same-sex marriages. She cited her religious views as the reason for refusing. Weeks after her release from jail, she was invited to meet Pope Francis when he was here in Washington. The Islamic State claims responsibility for a deadly attack on a TV station in Kabul. Two security guards died and 21 others were injured. Video shows school children being evacuated from the compound. Officials say the attackers, one of whom was a suicide bomber, were dressed as soldiers. Religious freedom gets a boost in Indonesia. A constitutional court overturns a 2013 law denying recognition to millions who follow native faiths like animism. That law said citizens must choose one of 6 official religions, including Catholicism, to claim basic rights like marriage registration. Bishops in Canada tell churchgoers to be ready to, quote, vigorously defend Catholic schools. They are using an annual letter to address the government's threat to cut funding for schools that teach traditional Catholic sexual education. The letter says, in part, calls to dismantle our publicly funded Catholic school system are growing ever louder, and we must not ignore them. A new book sheds light on the circumstances surrounding John Paul I's death in 1978 after just 33 days. It's written by an Italian journalist who covers the Vatican for the newspaper run by the Italian Bishops' Conference. She's also involved in that process that could lead to possible sainthood for the late pontiff. Juliet Lindley is EWTN News Nightly's Vatican correspondent. She joins us from Rome. Juliet, first of all, we know a lot about JP2, but who was JP1 and why was he called the Smiling Pope?
Lauren, Albino Luciani is most famous for being the Pope who reigned for only 1 month. But beyond that, Pope John Paul I was a humble, affable man from the region around Venice, with many of the characteristics and gestures that we see today in Pope Francis. And as my EWTN colleague Joan Lewis says, and remember she was here in Rome when he was elected, goodness, he must have smiled even in his sleep. He was such a gentle human being. You felt you could sit down and have coffee with him, and he had a twinkle in his eye.
You've read the book. What's new in this book?
So, Lauren, the book is written by journalist Stefania Falasca. She's one of the people in charge of studying and presenting the documents for the cause for John Paul I's possible beatification. So, thanks to her position, she was able to make public for the first time the medical records and documents that she had access to, which had never been seen previously. And those medical records show that the late Pope indeed died of natural causes, as was stated immediately after his death in September 78. And they would appear to finally put paid to the conspiracy theories surrounding his death that have circulated since then. And as Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin says in the preface to the book, finally those points that were left in limbo are clarified.
Pope John Paul I is being considered for sainthood. Where is he in that canonization process?
So today, the cardinals and bishops who are involved in the beatification process of John Paul I voted on recognizing his heroic virtues. Now, that's the first step towards a possible canonization. The next step is that Pope Francis must give his approval for John Paul I to become venerable. And after that, a new process begins towards beatification and eventually becoming a saint.
Juliet Lindley, thank you so much for joining us, giving us that insight. EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent.
Thank you, Lauren.
Coming up, Sean Spicer, one-on-one. Let's talk about the media and your time there.
Yeah.
Do you think that the media have lost their way? From media to the Pope, the former White House press secretary speaks out. It's an understatement to say that Sean Spicer had a rocky relationship with the media while working as President Trump's press secretary.
I appreciate your agenda here, but the reality is, oh, no, hold on. No, at some point, report the facts.
Appreciate it. Sean, thanks so much. Hey, Sean.
Since leaving his job in July, Spicer has appeared on the Emmys and a few late-night TV shows, but otherwise has kept a fairly low profile until today. He and I sit down for a one-on-one interview to discuss the president, the media, and his deep Catholic faith. Sean Spicer, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. What's it like on the outside after this tumultuous term as press secretary?
It's a lot less stressful. It's still busy, a lot of travel, but the stress level has gone down by a factor.
And I bet for your family, too.
It's been great to be able to spend time with them. I got to go to the All Saints Parade the other day at my kids' school, and so there's a lot of time with my family that I'm able to claim back.
Let's talk about the media and your time there.
Yeah.
Do you think that the media have lost their way?
Some, absolutely. There's no question that some reporters and some outlets have really kind of crossed the line in terms of what they'll do, what narratives they'll push, what stories they edit, which issues they don't cover. There's no question when you see a lot of these stories that come out and the attempt to push issues and narratives into the mainstream, while at the same time covering up other stories. It's concerning. I think a lot of the folks in the mainstream media need to take a look at what's happening and understand that People now have more ways than ever to get their news, whether it's through a station like EWTN or through a blog or people on Twitter that they follow or Facebook that are aggregators. I think there's a way that the American people can find out the facts and issues that they care about and are largely turning away from a lot of the mainstream folks because they don't trust them anymore. And I think the polls reflect that. So it's to their own detriment. It's not a question of who wins and loses. I think democracy loses when we don't have a vibrant and robust media that we can trust.
Were some, though, of the stories from the mainstream media legitimate?
There's no question that when you look at a lot of some of the stories, whether it's CNN or Politico, the New York Times, the Washington Post, that there are times when they overlook key stories, key facts, to perpetuate a narrative and a storyline that fits their being. There's no question about it. And you're seeing that partly on the president's visit right now, what they focus on, what they don't focus on. They put down religious issues. I think when it comes to how they cover people who believe in issues because of faith, they look at that as a negative, and they don't believe that good people can believe in areas of faith and be guided by that. And I think that shows their bias.
Did you ever tell the president never to talk to a reporter, like, this isn't going to serve you, they have their own agenda, maybe it's better not right now not to engage?
Absolutely. I mean, from the standpoint of I provided him counsel on a daily basis, as well as the rest of the communications and press team, that would suggest, hey, this is a good outlet, this is a good reporter, or this one is really driving a particular narrative. Our job is to consistently provide him with the best advice possible, whether it's issues or interviews or particular reporters that we thought would be helpful in getting a story out or making sure that something was covered.
But did he listen to you?
Oh, yeah, sure, all the time. Sometimes he took the advice, sometimes it was a combination of it, and sometimes he said, I appreciate it, but here's what I want to do. And that's frankly not just what he does, but every principal that I've worked for. I mean, that's your job, is to give them the best advice and counsel that you can and let them make the ultimate decision.
Let's talk about the Pope. On Trump's,
he's a good man.
He is a good man, and you met him.
I did.
Finally, but there was a kerfuffle that you were on the trip when Donald Trump and Melania met the Pope, but you weren't able to meet him. The media blew it up into the story of the meeting. Were you disappointed?
Well, look, I'm not going to go into details, but I think that what got reported at the time was not accurate, and through a variety of what I believe, frankly, is divine intervention. I think that all things happen for a reason. I was able to take my mom, my kids, and my wife to go see the Holy Father, a month later. That was a great honor. I look at it and say, if that's what came of it, of that instance, that I got to share that meeting with more of my family, then that was worth every part of it.
Give me your takeaway of the Pope.
I think that he has done a tremendous amount for our faith and for, frankly, the Catholic Church. He is so welcoming. He brings people in, obviously on some policy issues, but when it comes to understanding the Word of God and what we are supposed to be as individuals and what he asks of us, I think he leads by example, and I think he has been a very positive force on the church, and I think that I hope going forward more future popes and future priests and brothers and sisters look at him and the approach that he's taken to living his faith and being kind to others and understanding what Christ has asked of us.
Was there a moment when your family met with him that really touched you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't imagine what it's like to be in his presence and not feel overwhelmed. And so sitting there and praying with him and hearing him proclaim the Word of God is sort of one of those moments in life that you'll never forget. It's just one of those days that you go, okay, nothing's going to measure up.
Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary, thank you.
Thank you.
Sean tells me now his life is giving speeches, going to events, and consulting, and a book is in the works. We will have more of my conversation with him, including what he thinks about Saturday Night Live's impersonations, tomorrow on EWTN News Nightly. Up next, it's that time of year, boxes of joy.
Do you know why we have Christmas gifts? It helps us to understand what a gift Jesus is from God.
We'll tell you how you can help. We honor St. Willie Broard on his feast day. He was born in the 7th century and was the first bishop of Utrecht in what is now Holland. Georgetown University allows a campus group promoting marriage between a man and a woman to keep its funding. The Catholic school decided not to impose sanctions on Love Saxa after 2 students filed a complaint against the group. Well, it is hard to miss Christmas imagery all around us, even 1 week after Halloween. We get into the Christmas spirit, it seems, earlier and earlier every year, but that's a good thing for places where Christmas is just another day and there's not necessarily a lot to celebrate. Cross Catholic Outreach's Box of Joy ministry aims to change that by giving 60,000 gifts to children who live in dire poverty. Joining us now is Jim Kavnar, president of Cross Catholic Outreach, a nonprofit organization. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's great to be with you, Lauren.
We sent a crew down to Haiti to take a look at what happens when kids open this wonderful box, and they were so excited. Tell me firsthand what that's like.
Well, it was a great experience, and we distribute Box of Joy through Catholic parishes and dioceses and schools there, and so we went to a couple of Catholic schools. And what was really surprising to me, and what illustrates the poverty of the children, is that when we would ask them, what did you like best? The girls would pick up the bar of soap. A little boy picked up the toothbrush with a big smile.
Really?
Things that we take for granted, which are hard for them to come by. It helps to show the poverty of children who never receive a Christmas gift.
Isn't that something? Well, let's take a look in this box right now and tell me some of the things that those kids get other than the soap.
Well, this is an example of one of the boxes. These are packed by families in the U.S. It's especially something fun for the kids to do. Go buy things.
Oh, I loved these. That squid where you bounce the ball like this over and over again.
This was always very popular.
Oh, yeah. These are great. Some sunglasses. Oh,
and some practical things.
Oh, nice little socks with stars on them.
And a toothbrush and toothpaste.
Excellent.
For kids who maybe don't even have a toothbrush.
And that's probably what the biggest joy of this is for them.
School supplies, things like that are very meaningful. And for these kids, even a pencil can be something of great value, because in many of these schools, they don't even have their own pencil.
It's not just about the gifts, though, is it? It's a spiritual message you're bringing.
That's right. This is being distributed through the church and Catholic schools and Catholic missions in these poor countries. And it shows the love of God in a tangible way that kids and their parents can appreciate. And it's a way for families in the U.S. to do something practical that shows that I love you and God loves you.
Well, how can families get involved?
Go to boxofjoy.org. That's our website, boxofjoy.org. Click on families and it'll tell you what you do.
And so you're able to, I could do this in my house, or do I have to get a group together? No?
No, there are 470 parishes and Catholic schools this week who are wrapping it up and delivering 60,000 boxes to drop-off centers. So if a family lives near a drop-off center, they can just drop it off. Otherwise, they can get the address to mail it to our screening center in Miami. But any family can do it, and the kids will have a great time, and they'll learn about the love of God, and they'll learn about the poor and the needs of the poor.
Thank you so much. Boxofjoy.org. I've got that right. Jim Kavnar, president of Cross Catholic Outreach. And finally tonight, Catholic churches and schools in the United Kingdom will turn red later this month. At least 10 cathedrals will take part in the #Red Wednesday initiative, organized by the Aid to the Church in Need charity. The churches and schools will light up on November 22nd. Red symbolizes martyrdom and suffering. Their goal is to shine a light on the persecution of Christians and other faith groups today. For all of us at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night, and God bless you.